Welcome to Out and About. Believe it or not, it is summer in Melbourne, and that can only mean one thing: Midsumma. Tonight we're going to have a look at some upcoming festival events. One thing I'm looking forward to is the Archives Queer History Walk. That looks historic.
We're here at the Clock Tower Centre to have a look at some rehearsals for a musical that is going to be part of the Midsumma Festival called Falsettos the Musical. So come and join us.
Then Marvin came from work, sat me down on the bed. He told me how he loved me, how he needed a no matter me. I had. What? He said I had. Yes, syphilis. I had something rotten which appeared, well now it's all forgotten. Baby darling, so
We've got the pleasure of sitting with Peter, the director of Falsettos.
Falsettos is absolutely ideal for Midsumma Festival. The show is essentially about a current and forever present set of problems that affect homosexual men, particularly married homosexual men. Marvin, who is the leading character, has left his wife at the beginning of the show, but still wants to keep his relationship with Trina, his wife, and Jason, his son, but is in love with Wizza, who's his boyfriend. Into the bargain, Trina falls in love with Marvin, her ex-husband's psychiatrist.
I am probably diseased.
You're a lovely girl. What a lovely girl, but she's probably diseased.
So please do not excite us. He explained
The people that we now have are people that have been selected on all sorts of grounds. It's not only their acting and their singing and their dancing, but also their looks. A lot of it is to do with people working together too. It's not just a case of this would be the best one for that character.
So don't just pick the cute people, because that's what I'd do.
Well, that's part of it. We certainly do have cute people in the cast.
Good.
But is it a believable relationship? Is it believable that man could have married this woman? Could they have had this person as their son? Brenton Spiteri plays the young boy, and his voice is to die for. Not only that, he's but 13, the boy who's playing the role, and he has an innate understanding of what the stage is. He's also trained for 8 years with a group out at Altona, but his instinct for the stage is fantastic, so I'm really excited about him too. But I shouldn't be picking out any one in particular, because I think what we have is a great ensemble cast that will really work.
Everything he owns is vile. Mark doesn't care of it. Mark doesn't share my emotion. Style.
Midsumma Festival is an opportunity to focus on material which is associated with the gay community. Chapel Off Chapel is a place where magical things of new material is happening all of the time. And Blackbird have this absolute thing about creating work, enjoying it, and then challenging the audience, and putting all of that together in packages and creating opportunities which we otherwise would not see. The Blackbird Productions, that's what their real skill is. Working out A, what might work for an audience, B, what's topical, C, what can be cast, and what you can bring together to make a really effective production.
Men from France can cancel a debt, and cufflinks make me forget my name. I intend to absent this regrettable game.
It's not just a play. The show's sung through pretty well. There are 42 songs in the show. Luke Hunter is musically directing. He has great energy. Also, he's a great musician. It's really, you can tell very quickly with a music director. They have a feel for the score straight away, and they can actually send that through to the actors, and this is where one of Luke's major skills. This is historically it's 1979, 1981, and so we never actually mention the words HIV or AIDS. It's clear that that's what we are talking about. What one should go out of this show feeling is that the people who care are left in a positive situation, and I don't mean that as a pun. It's not joyous, but it is a way to accept what is and to go on. And I've had a couple of friends who have died of AIDS, but I've spoken to young people who haven't actually had that experience, who actually haven't had. So when they looked at this text, they actually thought, oh, perhaps it's a bit maudlin. And I was able to say with great confidence, but that's what is. That's what actually happens. And this is how people get out of that situation, how they move on. So I think it's really important, particularly now that it's clear that people are being less responsible about safe sex. It's really important, it's very timely that we should be doing the show. Now, it sounds as if I'm starting to make messages all over the place and that we're going to have neon signs across the stage saying use a condom. We are not. No. It's not like that at all. If we are successful in making this show work, the audience will have had a damn good laugh. They will have also thought, you poor bastard, you're trying to... So we're going to
shed a few tears?
If you don't, I haven't done my job. People will hopefully have a think, they should out of any good theatre, they have a think about the things that are discussed during a play. They will have had a laugh, they will have enjoyed some fantastic music, they'll have enjoyed some very funny routines, and some great comic moments in the piece as well.
My name is Mendel. I come next Friday. I have 2 buttons on my suit. That's our pen pal.
Falsettos the Musical opens on the 31st of January and it plays through until the 15th of February. We can get tickets at Chapel Off Chapel.
See, someone's calling already.
They're probably ringing 8290 7000, or that when they get off the phone they're going to go to the computer and go to www.lastminute.com.au.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm seeing the loser win. The loser win.
We're here at the Gertrude Contemporary Art Spaces, where you can come and see what the professionals have to offer for Midsumma. But anyone can get their art seen by entering the Mass Hang on Carnival Day.
Nothing's really wrong, but everything's the matter. Things don't turn out right. It's not your fault, and I think it's the rain.
Aha! Great! Now I'm ready for the DT's Golden Stiletto Rally. But for now, I'm going to have a look at rehearsals for What Is It, Zach? Daddy Wolf. I'm here talking to Lindsay Smith, who's the director and starring in a production called What Is It, Zach and Daddy Wolf. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm really good.
This production is taken from a few things written by James Purdy. Now, a lot of people probably are aware or know of Tennessee Williams, but are not quite aware of James Purdy's work. Why don't you tell us a little bit about him?
Well, James Purdy is now an 80-year-old man. I contacted him in Brooklyn the other day on the telephone, and he was in bed, and it's very cold in New York at the moment, and he said, "Lindsay, please get me a blanket, And I said, James, I'm in Melbourne. So there was no chance of getting him a blanket. But James has been at the forefront of gay, if we can use that word generically, writing in America for now 50 years. And he ranks right there with Tennessee Williams, Gore Vidal, Truman Capote, as the finest of the gay writers that America has produced, and they produced a great many in that time. He's a novelist. He's written upward of 20 novels that have been published in many languages all over the world. He's a poet, and more recently he's become fascinated with the theatre. And an opera singer, Jane Smith, who was a very close friend of Tennessee Williams, came to me once in New York and said, you must have a look at these plays. I had a look at the plays and I was bowled over immediately by their intensity, their sensitivity, their drive, their theatricality. And so I put on a production of 3 of his short works, which was very, very successful. And since then have done a few more productions, but this is the first time in Melbourne.
It is the first time in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But that's a really interesting fact too. So you were the first to get James Purdy's work out there in the theatre.
Yeah, in New York as well. We did a season in the mid-70s, I guess, in Late Again Club in New York. And that was the first time his work had been done there. And it was extremely well received. He's got an enormous following in Europe, in Great Britain. His latest novel, Moe's Villa, has just been published, short stories again. So this piece that I'm doing now is an amalgam of a short story called Daddy Wolf and a play called What Is It, Zach? I've intercut those 2 works in collaboration with the other actors on the show and a musician, and we now have a new work which could be called Daddy Zach, a hybrid of a short
Cross
story.
between the two.
You aren't the first man to ask me what I'm doing so long in the phone booth with the door to my flat open and all.
I don't get any of my work done, I'm telling you.
Let me explain something. Oh, if you want to use the phone, I can step out for a minute.
All I do is cook for this veteran. I know I'm not a cook,
But I am trying to get operator to reconnect me to a party she just cut me off from.
Yeah, I know I'm not a cook, but I had to tell him I was to get the job.
If you're not in a big hurry, would you let me just try to get my party again?
No, he's not satisfied, or who knows? Anyhow, I'm learning how to cook, yeah? I have to hang up now, I hear him coming.
Hey, my phone bill was enough to break me this month, and you know I never use it, don't you?
I've been home 2 days now, just looking at them 2 or 3 holes in the linoleum in my flat.
Hey, you called the druggist when I could go for you just as well.
That's 1 call a month, whereas you and the
told
other...
me you wanted me to feel comfortable here the day you hired me. Well, using the phone is one way I can feel that.
Those holes are so goddamn big now.
Was that a difficult task marrying the 2, because they are quite different? One is written in prose, one is in, I guess, a monologue, and the other is quite dynamic between 2 characters. Was it hard to marry those?
Well, they sit together beautifully because it's the same man writing them. And the thing about Purdy's writing, he's been called a Southern Gothic, and his work is very rococo, decorative, but very to the point. And although the rhythms of Daddy Wolf are very different from the rhythms of Zach, that was the interesting part of putting them together. To go from this really short, sharp, hard dialogue into the flowing, arcane sort of prose of Daddy Wolf, yeah. But the most difficult thing is to make that read dramatically, to make the monologue drama.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing, and we're still struggling with that as I speak.
And what is it, Zach and Daddy Wolf actually as part of the Midsumma Festival this year?
That's right.
And what do you think that this production brings to Midsumma?
Oh, yeah.
It's quite different from a lot of the cabaret and musicals that we tend to see over the Midsumma. Why is this important?
Well, I think that the Midsumma Festival should represent the full spectrum of gay and lesbian writing, performance, music, film, whatever it may be, from the most frivolous to the most intense, from low art to high art, everything. It should also involve the local and the international. in my opinion. So when I approached Nancy Cato with this proposal, it was in order to bring something to the high end of the festival.
Yeah.
Something which represented the most sublime writing in the gay lexicon, right? In the gay oeuvre, if you want to use that word. So I think that adding that at the top end is going to be an interesting experiment.
Excellent. And so this is it's a very powerful piece,
Yep.
and it should be an excellent experience. What are you hoping that your audience will take away from this production?
Well, I'm more interested in what they bring to the production. I hope they bring open minds. I hope it also spreads across audiences, that we don't just cater to the gay audience. Well, I know a lot of them are watching this show, and we want people from the gay community to come and experience the work of one of the great American gay writers, but we also want members of the straight, the unbent community to come in here and have a look at what the work of, as I said, a great writer. Dame Edith Sitwell of the remarkable Sitwell family proclaimed in 1950 something, that James was the greatest writer in the American language in the last 100 years. And I think that's very true. His writing is so idiosyncratic, so personal, that you can't help, I think, but respond to it. But his work, again, has always been, or is mainly about men, their dependency on each other, not so much their sexual relationship. He doesn't penetrate, if I may use that word, into that area much, but the dependency, the love of man for man, the dependency upon each other, living together, the problems it raises, the difficulty of not getting in a long-term male relationship, of getting into husband-wife syndrome.
Yeah.
Which, what is it Zach really explores, because Peter's very much, have the dinner on the table at 5 o'clock theatre, which he's revolting against. So he writes about men and their interaction, their dependency, and their love for each other.
There's one thing I never want to hear from you again, though, whether I cook for you or not. Never say...
Yes, go on, Pete, dear.
Don't call me dear. I'm nobody's dear, nobody's.
Well, tell me anyhow.
Don't ever tell anybody or even breathe it to yourself that you took me in off the streets, or I will kill you. Do you hear? I will cut your throat.
I do believe you would, Pete. I do believe you would. All right, I'll never say it again. In any case, it's not true.
It's true, all right? It's the whole truth. But I won't hear it! I hate the truth as much as you do!
With gay literature, or gay works, if we can call it that, what is it that makes a gay literary artist? Because James Purdy writes about the relationships between men, but Tennessee Williams, still classed as a gay writer, but he tended to give those characters female...
Well, great female parts, Blanche Dubois for one, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Night of the Iguana. The thing about Tennessee Williams is he has written hundreds of plays, but the average theatre goer, even someone who knows about theatre, only knows about Streetcar Named Desire, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, etc., right? About 3 or 4 plays. Because Tennessee got a very, very rough deal from critics and from audiences in the 50s because of the homophobia that was around at the time. He never really got the credit that was due to him. And James Purdy, I think, is very much the same. He's a prophet in his, a pariah in his own land. He's lauded in Holland, he's lauded in Europe, he's lauded in England, but Americans have a great deal of trouble warming to his work.
When I first moved into this building, I told her I had to pinch myself to be sure I was actually seeing it right. I seen all the dirt before I moved in, but once I was in, I really seen it. All the traces of all the ones that were gone before. People who had died or lost their jobs or found they was the wrong race or something and had to vacate all of a sudden before they had a chance to clean the place up for the next tenant. A lot of them left in such a hurry, they just give you a present of all their belongings and underwear, together with their dirt. But Then as soon as one party moved out in such a hurry, somebody else from somewhere else moved in and found they could not make it in New York City. Lit out somewhere. Maybe was taken to hospital in a serious condition and never returned. I moved in, just like the others. On the linoleum.
I wanted to touch on too the gay writers, gay literature in the 50s and 60s, and with that huge homophobia that was around in America and around everywhere back then, how even getting a book published like James Purdy and Tennessee Williams, that would have been a mean feat in itself. How hard was it to get gay literature and plays out to the public?
Let's bring that closer to home, in fact. In the late 60s, the first play about openly gay men, Boys in the Band it was called, was banned, was not allowed to go on. It was very, very tame by today's standards. I myself was arrested on stage in 1969 for saying the word fuck in a play by Alex Buzo called Norman Ahmed. It was only one swear word in the whole thing. I said fuck at the end of the play, and the Vice Squad came out of the front row and arrested me, right? They shut down Boys in the Band because it was about gay men. Even Benjamin Franklin, Steve Spears' great play, had trouble because it had naked homosexuality on stage. So there was McCarthyism, there was homophobia, there was the nuclear family, all these pressures to fit in. So anything that was sort of on the outside was seen as subversive, and there was a last attempt to stop it, you know. If we can stop it here, then it won't permeate our life. And Stonewall, the riots at Stonewall by the drag queens against the cops, who used to come in and humiliate them, you know, push their head into and wash off makeup and stuff like this, and nearly drown them. And one night they came in, and instead of taking it, all the trannies and everyone just revolted against the police, hit them and belted them with spike-heeled shoes, and the police then changed their attitude completely. So there has been a liberalisation, say from the 70s through to today. But in that time, it was just not kosher to be a gay writer, or a black writer, or a woman writer, a Spanish writer.
And this space that we're doing in, this is a very nice space, isn't it?
Yeah,
we were commenting on that before. We're actually at Chapel Off Chapel. And when can we come and see, what is it, Zach? And
it's in the last 2 weeks of the Midsumma Festival, the 29th of January to the 9th of February, here in the loft space at Chapel Off Chapel, where there's a plethora of great plays in the festival here. There's about 8 or 10 works and forums and stuff in here. And we'll be presenting our work at 9 o'clock in the loft from the 29th through to the 9th. And we've got a great cast. Wilfred Last, Nicholas Polides, and we've got a saxophone player to die for, and some remarkable slides, and it's really the perfect postmodern event to spend your money on. $15 and $10 concession. I mean, you can't get better than that. Seats are selling fast. There's only 90 can get in, and I'd like to encourage everybody to come and have a look at something which might be a little bit different from the normal Midsumma fare.
Take me to a party she just cut me off from.
Yeah, no, I'm not a cook, but I had to tell him I was to get the job.
If you're not in a big hurry, would you let me try to get my party again?
And cut.
we hope you enjoyed the show, and keep watching Bent TV for more updates over the Midsumma Festival.